The history of national television starts in 1980s, but before that, there was another television service started in Sri Lanka by some entrepreneurs. That was limited to the capital and the very smaller geography. So in 1982, there was the Parliament established Rupavahini as the national TV, and it started its first transmission on 15 February 1985. So that's the history behind that. But it's also good to remind people that the television of Sri Lanka, national TV, is an outright gift of Japan. So it's a gift from the people of Japan to the people of Sri Lanka as a gesture. For at that time, the Japanese were under some pressure at the UN because of the wartime, but Sri Lanka made representation. Then the leader made representation to sort of not to carry on those past. So as a gesture for that, it was an outright gift with no conditions that was given. So we were very lucky. Right, so the link between me and Rupavahini again goes to nearly 4 decades, because as I reminded you, the Rupavahini was started in 1982, February. I did my what's called the engineering internship in 1984 at Rupavahini. So it was a very brand new infrastructure establishment and new experience for people. So that's a sort of a new discipline in Sri Lanka for people to study and venture into. So I did my internship in 1984 and 85, but after graduating in 86, I could not immediately join Rupavahini. That's what I wanted, but I had to wait 3 years. That was in 1989, I joined Rupavahini. But during 86 and 89, I worked for one of the top computer firms, which helped me again at Rupavahini to sort of develop certain things at Rupavahini. But I worked only between 89 and 94 at Rupavahini, and then I went to University of Moratuwa, and returned to SLRC once again as the head of engineering in 1997. So that was on a national request. I was released from Moratuwa University to serve for a fixed period of time. So I served 4 years as the head of engineering, as the Deputy Director General Engineering of Rupavahini between 1997 and 2001. It is one of the tough times in Sri Lanka, one would remember. A lot of fear on the road living, especially in Colombo, and we were under threat all the time, being in the media. Right. So, but that was a very fruitful time for me, and because during that time we rehabilitated Rupavahini with new infrastructures. We introduced, we updated studios, master control room, transmission, and also I don't know whether some of may recall that we introduced stereo sound for our transmission, and also multilingual sound transmission. That means in one transmission we can carry 2 languages, both either Sinhala and Tamil, or English and Sinhala, or any 2. Or if it is a musical program, we can carry stereo sound. So that was one key thing that we did during that time. So that's how the link started between the Rupavahini and mine, but we kept on even to date from distance. Yeah, when it was started, because lots of people may look at the media and television in today's context, because today television runs 24 hours. Every time you on it, you see something. But in the past, it wasn't the case. Most of the television station in any given country starts only in the afternoon. And so it starts with some children programs around 4 o'clock, and then around 6, 7, some family programs, and then some news in Sri Lankan situation in 2 languages or 3 languages. Because you would remember that 6 o'clock we had Tamil news, 8 o'clock we had the Sinhala news, and then 9 o'clock we had the English news. But by 12 o'clock latest, the transmission was closed. So we had only one physical channel to broadcast that. But in the morning, at the beginning, we had an educational program. So that the same infrastructure, the channel, was used for broadcasting in the morning educational programs. So these are formal programs done with the Ministry of Education. But in the afternoons, it's our normal entertainment and information programs. But one thing I should mention at this point, when during my time as the head of engineering, Deputy General Engineering, between 1997 and 2001, locally produced, without much investment. We did on a very small investment. That means we did all our innovation by ourselves, and we developed the second program channel. So we had a physical channel, so simultaneously we can transmit 2 programs at the same time. And that's what probably you may have seen that as what's called the I channel. So the I channel is the one that at the beginning we used mainly for sports broadcast as a parallel channel, and we now use that for other Tamil programs at certain times that can be done. So we have now 2 physical channels, which was the second channel completely built, built by our own engineers and the technical staff of Rupavahini. This is the award that I received from the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka for the development of spearheading the development of second program channel. As I mentioned to you earlier, all that work was done locally. So we designed everything to carry the signal from Colombo to Fidrutalagala and all the other things with almost no extra cost. So that's a very good achievement from all of us as a teamwork, which I spearheaded within SLRC. So as I mentioned, I continue to support SLRC. So whenever I visited Sri Lanka, I always go to SLRC to train the staff. So this was awarded to me in 2016. That was a training program organized by the then director of their training and research, Mr. TMG Chandrasekhara. And so we did nearly a long week training program, and not only train the technical staff, but all the staff about the evolution of technology, how they need to change with the changing technology. And so again, this was a good gesture I received from Rupavahini. So as I mentioned earlier, so I'll still continue in both in the Pacific and in the other region, the training and human capacity and capacity building for the broadcasting area. So this was also recognized in 2015 by the Institution of Engineers New Zealand, IPENS at that time, now called the Engineering New Zealand, offering me the fellowship. So these are the recognition of my services to the broadcast. So actually, we were very lucky compared to some other countries. Even when India haven't got television not too long ago from the time we got it, but they got the beginning black and white TV. But we went straight on to the color television, and since then, the television progress has been slow in general, globally. But we try to be in phase with that. So we introduced the right technologies at the right time. So we brought in graphics to improve, and you would remember we brought our own characters characters into that because we had to use Sinhala characters, Tamil characters, those things. And then we also automated some of the commercial playback. And as I mentioned to you, we introduced the multilingual and stereo sound transmission into that one. We also researched on what's called the teletext service, but at that time there wasn't much sort of business case to do that because those teletext services that was available even in country like New Zealand at that time, even today it's fairly popular in a different way, is providing value-added services. It can provide like a weather information, exchange rate, financial information, flight information, and so on. But those things are nowadays replaced with the internet in the World Wide Web. But still, it's available. So we evolve over the time. I think now we are at the point where we need to go through a major evolution, which is going from analog transmission to the digital transmission. And I suppose that will happen soon because they have already started, they have selected a system to do that. And then they will introduce what's called the terrestrial digital broadcasting. So like what we enjoy in New Zealand with what we call the Freeview at the beginning, now Preview Plus. So they should be able to get the digital signal with much clear pictures and also quite a improved quality with the aspect ratio, high definition, and those features. Yeah, so I hinted earlier that we are not yet ready in Sri Lanka for people of Sri Lanka cannot enjoy what we enjoy now today in New Zealand, because now in New Zealand our terrestrial broadcasting, that's the terrestrial means the broadcasting that we do with the ground station, right? So if you look at in our city, if you go to Palmy City and you look at the other side, so you see on the top of the mountain, the Warati, a transmission station. It transmits like your mobile phones in digital form. It transmits signal in digital way. So it's a more efficient and it gives a very high quality signals. We are not yet there yet in Sri Lanka for that. So they are now in the process of introducing that. We have some infrastructures already, and you would probably know we have a very good transmission tower in Colombo, because that's sort of one of the things that lacked in the past, even with this Rupavahini, because our main station, transmission station was in Pidurtaragal. It's quite far. And then when the signal comes to Colombo, it's become much weaker. But once we have this, what's called the Lotus Tower, you would probably have, and then we could accommodate lots of channels, not limited to the Rupavahini and the other channels as well, and then the radio channels. So that's the situation. Then the other important aspect is Rupavahini is already available on the YouTube, and they also do Facebook live events. But those are sort of not nicely linked, coupled to their normal broadcast. But in New Zealand, we have what's called the Preview Plus, where we can get the signal either from the transmitter station or through the broadband. So if your broadband is good and some of the contents you missed, let's say you missed the 6 o'clock news bulletin, you want to go and catch up that one. So that can be done easily through that integrated mechanism. It's called the integrated broadcast broadband, which is available through Freeview Plus. We call it Freeview Plus because we don't have to pay. It's free to air, free to access. And this will happen soon in Sri Lanka too, where the broadcast and the broadband both will be given. My link to those things are now, because as I mentioned to you, I worked for national TV in Sri Lanka until we migrated to New Zealand. So after 2001, I went back to the university for 1 year and then came here. But when I came to New Zealand, I worked for Massey University as a senior academic. So I did not have a very close link to the broadcast like what you used to have, but I continue to work with many of those organizations. In fact, I've been to Rupavahini also to train them. So both sort of in the region, in the Pacific, our neighbors like Samoa, Tonga, those ones, and Papua New Guinea, and also back in the Asia, Sri Lanka and those countries, I worked to a certain extent, and also internationally with the International Telecommunication Union. And also at that time, my sort of work were not limited to just the broadcasting, so it's just an expansion of the broadcasting into the media and the ICT as the evolution goes. So now, so in the process, though I sort of decoupled from the industry side and going into the academia, I continue to research and I continue to help those countries in the broadcasting areas.